Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Beitzah Daf Tes, we are going to begin on Ches Amud Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom. We're continuing in yesterday's discussion about the koi, in which was a suffix behema suffix chaya, that we said on Yom Tov a person should not shech, because it has the issue of whether kisi hadam is to be done, and because even though a person may designate offer for the sake of a vadi chaya, that does not mean it's muchan l'safik. Tani Rabbi Zera, lo koi bilvad amru. We didn't just say this stringency regarding a koi, that we do not want to cover its dam on Yom Tov. El fil shachet behema chaya v'of. Even if you shechted a chaya and an oaf, which does require kisa dam, we also shechted the behem, which is not, when it's arba dam and zebazet. Now all of a sudden, the blood got mixed in. So there the question is, the blood that you have in front of you, is it chayiv or is it pater in kisa dam? So therefore, because of this, asla chasais v'yamtiv. And in this case also, you're not allowed to cover it on yamtiv. Rabbi Yossi bar yas nioi lo shanu. The only time we say that this is the case is elish ein yachal chasais bidkira achas. If you're not able to cover it with one movement of the spade, mutter. However, if you're able to do it in one shot, then it's permissible, because certainly when you do it in one shot, so therefore you're definitely covering the dam of a chay and an oaf, and therefore you're not engaged in any level of excessive tircha. So for the Gemara pshita, it's obvious. So manatem nigzer tikira achas atushte tikiros kamashmon. Maybe if we allow it, you may start doing it more, and then it becomes problematic. Kamashmon once is acceptable. Amarabba shachat sipor me'erev Yom Tov. A person shechts a bird before Yom Tov. Ein machasanois Yom Tov. We do not allow you to cover it on Yom Tov. Well, why not? Aren't you supposed to do kisi yadayim? Yeah. But why didn't you do kisi yadayim before on Erev Yom Tov? Says Rashi, you should have covered it before. Mishum amnuye mishum simchas Yom Tov leika mishum do machasi dam lo mitzert sipur bachila. The truth is, you're not going to say, oh, so this person is missing out on simchas Yom Tov. No, you're still allowed to eat this animal. You lost out on the mitzvah of kisi yadam. That doesn't make it that the animal cannot be eaten. So therefore, we just say you're not supposed to do kisi yadam, because since you should have done the kisui, the covering of the blood on Erev Yom Tov when you did the shechita, and you didn't, so therefore we don't want you to do it now. Okay, that's when it comes to shechita on Erev Yom Tov, as we continue to test them at all. However, Gilgal Isam Erev Yom Tov. Let's say a person was mixing and making dough on Erev Yom Tov. So the din is mafresh mimenu chalasa b'Yom Tov. We will allow you, even now, though maybe you should have separated the challah on Erev Yom Tov, we're allowing you on Yom Tov to separate the challah, which is not the case, as we said, when it comes to the kisei adam. As Rashi says, even though we'll see later on Daf Lamed Vav that Elohein mishum shvus ein magvin trumas u'maisrus b'Yom Tov. One thing you're not supposed to do, midrabanan, is not supposed to separate trumas and maisrus. V'hanami ketrumas dagan damya. When it comes to challah, that separation has the same din. So why would we allow it? It's a shvus. Fil hachi mafresh, a person could still separate. Shalu gazru al trumas isa shahari mutil galgala b'Yom Tov, because technically you are allowed to be preparing it on Yom Tov itself, lafaisa, and to bake it, kedilechel paschama, in order to be able to have hot bread. So there really is no inyan of doing this before Yom Tov, because a person may actually prefer to have hot bread and to do it on Yom Tov. And therefore, because of that, we allow you to be mafresh it even on Yom Tov. He disagrees and says no. Just like when it comes to the dam sipor, if you didn't do it on Erev Yom Tov, that's it. So too when it comes to the challah, you cannot be mafresh. So that's a machlokas. Salema pliga de Shmuel devu the Shmuel. The Omer Shmuel. What does Shmuel say? He says chalos chutz la'aretz. When it comes to the separation of challah outside of Israel, a person could continue to eat, and then afterwards you could separate it. So l'chayra, the fact that we allow you to be oichel v'hoylech, says Rashi, kol pas, you can eat the whole thing, u'mishayer k'dei challah, just leave the small amount after you're finished, a tiny amount, and that will be the challah, u'mafrisha machrena, and then you could separate it afterwards. What do we see? It's considered to be a hafrasha shlo l'tzarich. It's not necessary to be mafresh. Says Rashi, "V'lo havi hafrasha v'hifresh b'yomtiv eno k'masakin delitzer kishar hagvas trumas the guzber banan." In this case, you could simply do this. So therefore, since it can be done on Yom Tov, you just continue to be oichel v'hoylech, and therefore that's a heter. So Rabbi Milo Ma'id Shmuel Sheim Karla Hashem Shasur Lazarim. There's 1 second. Even though it's true you don't need to be mafresh the challah, but let's say Yutaka did mafresh the challah, it becomes usher to zarim, it becomes usher to a non-kohen. So we see that it does take upon itself the name of truma. And Rashi says the isa b'chlal in magdin truma s'maisim b'yontiv, and therefore it still should fall into that category that you shouldn't be allowed to be mafresh it on Yom Tov because it's an Isser Shvus. Okay. Weiter. Beis Shammai Oimrim, let's see the next Mishnah. So Beis Shammai, again, is a machlokas, and he says, Ein moilichin es asulam mishubach l'shubach. On Yom Tov, a person cannot take a ladder and move it from one birdhouse to another birdhouse. And we'll see, Rashi says, we think, at least in the Havamina, this is a sulam hamiyuchad l'kach, that this ladder is designated for this purpose. And we'll see the reason why Beis Shammai is strict. And Rashi says, even though you're really taking it for the joy of Yom Tov, he still says you cannot take the ladder and move it from one place to the next. But he does allow you to at least tilt it from one window in that dovecut or that birdhouse to another window. That's acceptable, but you can't actually move it from one shuvach to another. But you can just bring it from one window to the window. Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel, again, is more lenient and allow you apparently to even bringing it from one shuvach to another. So Amram Chanan Barami tries to understand what exactly is this machlokas. Machlokas b'reshus harabim. The whole machlokas, whether or not you can transfer this ladder from one shuvach to the other, is dafka when it's out in the open, everyone can see. Perhaps people are going to think that this person, he's trying to fix his roof. He's doing some type of real malach on Yom Tov with this ladder. No. The fact that you are bringing it from one dovecut to another, it's very clear that the purpose is for you to get birds. It's not for you to fix your house. So therefore, Beis Hillel says that's not a reason to be concerned. However, of a Rishus Yachid, if it's done in your own private home where no one really sees, Divrei Kol Mutter, because there's no haraya, there's no seeing, and no one's going to suspect you of anything. So that's one possible answer. There's no issue of Maris Ayin because it's not something which is visible to the public. For the Gemara, any b'ha'im Rabbi Yehuda Merav, kol makom shasim chachamim nei Maris Ayin, if you b'chadu chadar maser. It doesn't make any difference, even if it's in the innermost chambers, even if it's in Rishus Yachid, and no one can see you. If there's an issue of Maris Ayin, we answered. We don't make any distinctions. A little plug, and therefore even in Rishus Yachid, we would be geyser. So how could you be machalik between Rishus Ram and Rishus Yachid if the whole issue is what a person's perception is of you? The reality is it should be an issue even in Rishus Yachid. The answer is Tanahi. Perhaps that's goof of the machlokas. Desanya. Shachtan behema avlo keneged am. So the din is that a person is allowed to hang out to dry, b'chama, I should say, in the sun. Says Rashi, Misha Nishra Kalev B'derech. Let's say you have your shirt soaking wet on the road, Sheichten b'chama v'hein noigvin me'alehen. So you take off your shirt and you hang it up, and it dries up by itself. It's not a problem. We don't want you to do it in front of everyone, because people will see that you're hanging up your shirt on your laundry hanger, right, on outside, and people are going to say, he must have been engaged in Saveya. Maybe he was dyeing it. He was laundering on Shabbos, on Yom Tov. So therefore, we don't allow you to do this. But apparently that means it's only an issue of Marsayan if people see it. But if it's done privately, then it's not an issue. So that's Guf of the Machlokas. And on this, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Oisrin, they answer because it doesn't make any difference. Even if it's in a place where no one can see, we're Geyser when it comes to Marsayan, and feel b'chad b'chadarim. Some say like this. The whole machlokas is totally on whether or not we hold to this concept of Morris Hayin or even Geyser Rishus Yachid. Over Rishus Rabim, Divrei Hakol Aser, that everyone would hold it is Aser because it's clear that you're doing something wrong. So Lema Rab Yomer K'Bei Shammai. So it sounds like therefore Rab holds like the Shita Bei Shammai, which of course we don't usually want to peg Tana like the Ashita, which we hold Beis Shammai in a Mishnah, that we don't pass like him. So Tanaihi, she says really it's a Machlokes Tanaim. The Sanya Shaitchin B'chama Avol Keneged Am, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Oisrin. Fine. It's question 5 as we continue to Daf Tes Amid Beis. Mehem study Hamachlokes Meisham Beis Hillel Bahilecha Sulam L'Shuvach B'Yomtiv. What exactly is this machlokas of moving this ladder? So either they argue by Rishus Rabim, Beis Shammai says it looks like you're trying to fix your roof. Beis Hillel says no, the dove coat is mochiach, or the machlokas is by Rishus Yachid, and Beis Shammai holds that the kol kam shasim shemoras ayin is even b'chad v'chadarim. Beis Hillel doesn't hold that that's far. It says moras ayin is something you can see. If you don't see, it's not an issue. Okay, weiter. Masnisen deloiki aitana. So our Mishnah that talks about the bringing of the ladder, and that there's a machlokas over there, bringing it from one dovecut to the next, one birdhouse to the next, is not like the following Tana. Deloiki haitana, the Sanya. It says like this in the Tosefta. Omer Reb Shimon ben Elazar. They both agree, which is clearly not what our Mishnah says. This Tosefta says that they agree that you can bring it from one shuvach to another. The whole question is replacing it after its use. Beis Shammai says you can't return it. Beis Hillel you can even return it. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says, when do we say this? Besum shel shuvach. Davka, when we're talking about a ladder which is designated for these dovecotes, for these birdhouses. Besum shel aliyah divrei hakol aser. And we're talking about a ladder in which its purpose is to go up to a roof, then everyone holds that as an issue, because it's going to be very clear that you must be doing it for the purposes of fixing your roof. Because why otherwise would you be using this particular ladder, which its whole purpose is for the Sulam Shaliyah. Rab Doisa Aimer Matehu Mechal Mechaloin. He says that you could tip the ladder from one window to the other. Acherem Aimer Mishum Rab Doisa Av Medadin Boy. You can even be Medadin, which means you could walk it back and forth. Says Rashi, Imachalon Rochlik. Let's say the windows are far apart. Vein Rosh Hasula Megia Sham. Let's say the top of the ladder doesn't reach to the other one. Ba Bahatia Mistadim Ragleha Shel Sulam Atmat. You can kind of like wiggle the ladder back and forth to get it to where it needs to go. Bnei Rabbi Chia Nafak Karyasa. So the children of Chia went out to the villages to be able to see their fields. Kiyasa, when they got there, Amalahu Abu hain klum masa bo liadchem. Did anything happen to you? Any stories? Any shilas? Anything come up? Amolo sulam bo liadenu. There was an interesting din about a ladder. V'hitirinhu, and we matered it. We allowed the ladder to be moved. So Amolahem suva asru ma shehitarta. You said things were permissible. Get back there and tell them that it's asr. Inhu savar. So they thought Minika Eimer Rabbi Yehuda b'sulam shaliyah. Lo pligi. The fact that when it comes to the ladder, which is designated for going up to a roof, that they don't argue it's asr. Mechlal the Tanakama savar pligi. They felt that maybe, according to the Tanakami, he felt that there really is a machlokas even by that ladder, that there's actually room to possibly be makel even when it comes to a sum shaliyah, according to the Tanakama. Vlohi, Rabbi Yehuda time the Tanakama kamafresh was explaining. Mamai menitani moylichin as a sum shubuch. He says, bringing the ladder from one to the next. The Yisach that of sum shaliyah. If you're telling me the whole machlokas is this ladder, which is really for a roof, so hay moylichin as a sulam meshuvach shuvach. Why would it say this language? Moylichin as a sulam lishuvach leboile. The fact that it says mishuvach shuvach sounds like that ladder is really designated for this birdhouse. That's why it was originally at that location. But if it was a ladder which was designated for a roof, so you're actually taking it from the roof. Lishuvach, elav hakikamer, shel shuvach in shel liloi. It's coming to tell you that no, definitely the only type of ladder that possibly is acceptable is the one which is designated for a shuvach. However, one which is for a roof, that's definitely a problem. The idach kimikatani sulam shel shuvach mishuvach shuvach katani v'fil kama shaykhin. It doesn't mean necessarily from one to the next. It could be going from one to many, and therefore that's all it's come to tell you. So therefore you cannot make a diuk that that's talking about a ladder which is designated for that purpose. So again, even Beis Hillel would only matir assume shel shuvach. And this other sheet, this is no, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's not a diuk from the Mishnah. Ikadi some say amelo hatu tsulim shaliyah. About the tilting of this type of a ladder. Vetiru, we allow them to tilt it. You should again tell them that's not acceptable. Inusavar madika asutanakama kosher Reb Beitzah. He thought that maybe Reb Beitzah felt that it was acceptable. Below it's not the case. Madika sharitanakama kosher Reb Beitzah. In fact, Reb Beitzah asered it, and therefore this is not acceptable, even though you told them it was good. Go back and tell them it's not. Okay, we're actually going to stop there. So let's go to question 6. Boy Rav Chia, hitiru halecha sulam. They allowed the bringing of a ladder from a shubach, like Beis Hillel. Madua hechzir mavihim aser mashitiartim. Why did the father say, no, go back? It's not acceptable. The answer is because the ladder in question was a sulam shel aliyah, and Beis Hillel only matered a sulam shel shuvach. Okay, let's see a couple more questions. Question TA 14. Omer Rabba. So Rabba says, Shachat Sipor Erev Yomtiv, in Mechasanois Yomtiv. As we said, because you should have did the Kisei Adam before Yomtiv. However, Gigel Isa Erev Yomtiv Mafrish L'Chasim Yomtiv. We do allow you to. So Madua in Mechasan Yomtiv. So why do you not allow you to cover this dam on Yomtiv of the Tzipor? The answer is because you should have done it before, and it's not usher of Kisoi, because the fact is you're allowed to you're still allowed to eat from this bird. So therefore you're not losing out on Simchas Yomtiv, because you're still able to eat it even without the Kisi Hadam, as what Rashi said. And then Madua ein Mechas Miyomtiv, as we said, Madua Chal Materis Aliba de Rabba V'Trumas Maisus Aser. How come when it comes to Chal, why are we more lenient? And he says, Chal Moter et Ma'aki V'Chila. So gozer al hafrashasa the mutal legalgal yomtiv, as we saw in Rashi, you're allowed to make the dough on yomtiv k'dei achal paschama, in order to be able to have for the bread to be hot, and therefore because of that we're not geyser. Mashen kin, when it comes to truma, we cannot say this leniency. So again, because you want to be able to have nice warm hot bread, so therefore there's a reason again to be more lenient when it comes to that. TB 17. Beishamai yomim in malichan asasul meshubach hashubach be'elu ofanim ikaman di oimer desharu beishamai. So how do we explain this? So either, when do we say beishamai allows it? Either when it's just yachid and there's no more zayin, or what's the question again? Be'elu ofanim ikaman di oimer desharu beishamai. So again, either it's just a yachid and you don't hold the marasayan, or it's l'hoylech k'dei lital goizalois l'simchas yomtiv. You're going to take these birds for simchas yomtiv. V'lo el l'hachser. The whole issue is returning the ladder and not putting it back. Putting it back, maybe that's the only thing that's not allowed. Okay. Let's conclude with Rabbi Kibber's tests. Fine. Hichnis offer l'chasos bo soa shel katan. Okay, we did that already. Im mutu l'chasos bo dam sipor. So that is allowed. The other way around is a machlokus. Im gilgul isa b'yomtiv, be'erev yomtiv. If you did this dough on erev yomtiv, are you mutu l'hafresh mimena chala b'yomtiv? It's actually a machlokus. Fine. Okay. Fine. On the other hand, fine. If you're again, you mix the dough on erev yomtiv, are you allowed to be mafresh it on yomtiv? So it's actually machlokus. So you ask for three answers. Rishus Rabim is the machlokus, but Rishus Yom everyone holds it's mutter. Rishus Rabim everyone holds it's aser. Rishus Yachid it's a machlokus. I didn't really explain it. Beishami holds you can't be chayzer the sulam. This holds you can even be chayzer. Eza halacha nishal b'mnei Reb Chia. In the, what was this question? Either sulam, the ladder was for a person's roof, and he thought it was a machlokus, or it's divrei kol aser. Can you tilt the sulam of a person's roof ladder for a shuvach or not? Ad kan.